Hello, friend. Welcome to another episode of the Mount Rushmore of Everything. Today, we are tackling Greek gods, ancient Greek gods. So, the first one, I think, is extremely obvious. One of my two very clear non negotiables that I have for this list. It is both the king of the gods, it is the god of the skies, it is probably the most recognizable name of a god, it is probably also the most recognizable image for a Greek god. So it wins in all of the imaginable categories, in my opinion, and that is Zeus.
Yeah, I agree. He's the big god. Anytime that you see any representation of in Greek culture, you're gonna have him, and you have him up high there usually. I remember watching Fantasia. They had a scene with that it was inspired by Greek mythology, and they have the centaurs, and then they keep going with the story, and all of a sudden they go up in the skies, and then there's the big clouds, and then the thundering, and boom, there shows up Zeus.
I find it hilarious you're mentioning Greek gods in a Disney movie, and it's not Hercules. The most obvious choice, and you're like, nope, Fantasia.
No. Fantasia, I think Fantasia's superior to any of those. In my,
I honestly haven't
world.
seen any of those movies in so many years that I don't know. So Zeus, I agree. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think Zeus deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore?
Oh, if you don't,
I mean, if you don't,
you're gonna be struck by lightning.
come on. But if you agree, drop a like right now because you want to say, hey, I agree with these guys. Zeus on the Mount Rushmore of Greek gods. It's your turn.
All right.
Oh, it's not getting hard yet.
No, it's
I think
not getting hard. I just want to pick which one I'm gonna go with. Well, I have three non-negotiables.
Okay.
One
I'm borderline 3. I definitely have 2. I'm borderline 3.
So here goes my next one is Poseidon.
Yes,
Another one iconic, another one very powerful.
for sure.
And then they had all of those creatures, sea creatures that, he rules over, and it's just fascinating. Fascinating stuff.
That's what happens when you're the god of the sea.
Yeah. And then I can't help but think of Aquaman. He has his whole background story. And I mean, I didn't go back to review all, but they were all related, and they were brothers, and they were
They're brothers.
fathers and sons.
Zeus and Poseidon are brothers.
Yeah.
God of the Seas gets major points, and second most powerful god, next only to Zeus, gets mega points. Second most recognizable name, second most recognizable appearance, maybe even first. I could entertain an argument that the image of Poseidon is even more iconic than Zeus, but again, I could entertain it.
Yeah.
Let us know down below if you could only choose one that is iconic for appearance, not for name, not for most power, none of that, just appearance. What do you think? Poseidon or Zeus? I think Zeus, but let us know. I'm a little curious. So he's just the clear other non-negotiable for me, and I entertain a third one as possible non-negotiable status as well. But Poseidon is absolutely locked in.
Okay.
The third one I would consider for non-negotiable status is the third of the brothers, with Zeus, who is the king of the gods and of the skies.
Uh-huh.
Then we have Poseidon of the ocean.
Yeah.
So then we just got to keep going lower to the god of the underworld, which is Hades.
Hades.
Which for me is a very recognizable name. It's a little hard after Zeus and Poseidon to pick what the third most iconic name and appearance are. There's a lot.
There are a lot, and there are a lot that are very recognizable.
So the reason I ended up going with Hades is, one, it sort of completes that triplet. So it's got the iconicness that I think is about even with all the rest that we could consider there. And then the power is clearly elevated from some of those, and the importance being the third brother, because you have the sky, seas, and then...
It's like by layers.
And then, so...
It's interesting.
And then just in, pop culture kind of thing, it's to the point that, like, the word Hades is another word we use for the concept of hell. Whatever that concept of hell is. Some of the recurring themes, right, is it's under the earth. The fact that we use Hades synonymously with hell gives you, idea of just the level of iconicness and importance that he has, echoing all the way to our present culture.
Another thing that I really like about these three guys I'm sorry, gods, is that
There's three ancient Greek deities.
yeah, from the
Olympian gods.
from the designing point of view, you have very, very unique features on each of the three.
Sure.
If they had an app,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
of course,
Their
Zeus,
profile pictures would be instantly recognizable.
right?
Yeah.
Even the icon in the app, Zeus would have the lightning bolt.
Yep.
Poseidon would have, the trident.
Yep.
And Hades would have fire.
Yep.
The colors are very
Clear.
on each one
sure.
of them: blue, green, and red.
That brings us to our last one.
Last one.
Which is the first one that I would not be surprised if we disagreed on.
All right, I'm gonna go with Athena.
4 for 4 again.
Really?
This one I'm actually surprised by.
A lot of this is thinking which one would deserve a spot instead of Athena. I thought of some, and we'll talk about them, but no one had that presence that Athena has, especially with all the relationships between the different gods.
Yeah.
And how important they were for the culture. I think that she deserves to be in the Mount Rushmore.
For sure. For me, it came down to there's always going to be different categories for Mount Rushmore, right? Like how iconic is the appearance of this god today? How iconic is the name of this god today? How important, iconic was the name and appearance of the god to them back in the day, to the culture that it actually applies to? How beloved of a god were they? Because some are not very beloved, and that, you know, it depends.
Yeah, there were some scary
So,
gods.
for example, Hades not being popular, I don't count as a hit against Hades, because that's the point, right? Like, if anything, infamy helps Hades.
Yeah.
It's like taking points away from Satan because he's so feared, right? Like, you wouldn't do that. That's the point, right? Like, that's his thing. It was really hard to separate this last slot on those big categories. So it sort of came down to some of the littler things like that last category I mentioned, or second to last that I mentioned, which is how well thought of they were in their day. And then another thing worth mentioning is how important they are to like culture as a whole. She was the goddess of wisdom, reasoning, and intelligence. And if you think about Greek culture, the main thing you think of is the birth of wisdom and intelligence, in the sense that like it was one of the first cultures that's still relevant today, still echoes today with the philosophers and stuff of like knowledge, right? And democracy was basically born in Greece, and that's eventually what was copied by Rome to make a republic. And the Republic of Rome is what influences, you know, the greatest governments on earth today. So seeing the way that Athena, in a sense, is echoed to the point that Athens, the by far most important city in Greece, was named after her. And the Parthenon, most famous maybe building in Greece, was her temple. And then I thought it was just cool that she was goddess of wisdom, but also of war, but specifically of just war. So she represented war that was in defense and wisdom in war, not the uncontrolled aspects of war, but the good reserved side of war.
Just balancing wisdom with the war.
Yes, because it's doing it when necessary, when it is wise to do so, but not otherwise. And Zeus's favorite child, which is worth a little extra bonus points because he had a lot of children that were gods. And one of the few gods that it was noted in all the things I read that like this was a god that was popular among the gods, right? So gods would have favorites, for example. Yeah. And, you know, some gods would dislike each other, allegedly. And then there's how the people saw the gods, right? So in theory, there could be a god that the other gods theoretically don't like, but the people do like. But Athena was widely loved by both people and other gods. And then another little extra bonus thing to throw in there. For the Odyssey, which is quite possibly the most iconic Greek-based book to this day, she is one of the 3 main gods mentioned there, and Poseidon is one of the other ones. Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what your 4 Mount Rushmore of Greek gods are. Be sure to click that little notification bell and subscribe so you know when all our other Mount Rushmore of Everything videos come out. If you liked this video, which you probably did because you already made it to the end of this video, we do this every single week. Talk about the Mount Rushmore of everything. Right now, we are in the middle of talking about ancient gods and goddesses. We're doing a little mini-series, but we cover a bunch of other things from Star Wars characters to pies to everything in between. So be sure to do that if you want more of this content. We appreciate you watching, whether you skip to the end just to see the answers or if you watched all the way through. We appreciate you, even if you just gave this video a chance. We will talk to you next time.
The daddy of gods in Greek. I mean, he's literally the dad of many of the other gods.
I just pictured like this, you know, the image of Zeus throwing lightning down, be like, call me your daddy.
Like a boss.
Your boss and your daddy.
Like a boss, and then he just,
Yep.
like a Zeus.